Evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another live stream from No Tanks Towers. Today it's 21st of December, and it's the longest night of the year, the winter solstice. So a couple of housekeeping. There's not really much housekeeping at the moment because we are currently in tier 4 in most of South England. Oh, bless you. So there's not many pool sessions going on. There is a Colchester session going on tonight, which, obviously, if you're watching this, you're too late. You can't go to that session. And also Brighton that starts actually right now. So hopefully we'll get back to pool sessions in the new year. I'd like to thank the sponsors of tonight's video. That's Fourth Element. They make amazing t-shirts. You can see this one here. This is my favourite one. It's many years old. High quality clothing and diving equipment. It's fantastic. So, and yeah, the perfect late Christmas present would be the changing robe made out of recycled plastic bottles and fishing nets. No, plastic bottles. The swimwear is made out of recycled fishing nets. So they're being zero this year, by the end of this year, which they've done fantastically. So they're actually no plastic in their, no first-use plastic in any of their packaging or anything like that. Fantastic. So without further ado, why is freediving? Oh, 1st of January. I nearly said the actual thing that I was meant to be telling you about. The 1st of January, New Year's Day dive. Welcome to come along to Raisbury at 11 o'clock on New Year's Day, and come diving with us on New Year's Day. It'll be socially distanced, obviously, and yeah, we just get in and dive and have some fun on New Year's Day. Okay, so moving on. Why freediving is not dangerous? Okay, so a couple of things that I've seen recently that just made me think we're being misrepresented, and actually, over the years that I've been doing this, there's a couple of common misconceptions which I thought I should put these in a live stream, put them together, and yeah, go through it with you guys. So let's cut to the chase. Freediving is classed as a dangerous sport. There's no getting around it. It is practiced in water, underwater, in water. So therefore, there is the whole water environment, which is classed as a dangerous activity. Okay. Because obviously the danger of drowning, just even if you're falling over on the side of the pool, falling in the pool, it's the water's a kind of dangerous environment to be around. Okay, but of course most freediving takes place in open water, in lakes or in the sea. So you do have other things which come into play, nothing to do with freediving particularly, but just the environment you're in. So weather. And tides, just and currents that make our activity, put us in a dangerous environment. So I'm not by any stretch of imagination saying this is not dangerous, but I just wanted to kind of pull it back from. Let's put it like this: I watched a video today researching this, or this morning. And it said it's listed as the second most dangerous sport in the world, and it clearly isn't. A few years ago, the stats from a few years ago was that horse riding was the most dangerous, followed by motorcycling, and then kind of base jumping and stuff were laying down. So freediving is definitely not the second most dangerous sport in the world by any stretch of imagination, and that's why I kind of wanted to address it. So the first thing I wanted to say was the numbers we see about deaths associated with freediving. Okay, one of the stats that came out was that in this every year 20 freedivers die in the US alone. And this figure is not kind of factually correct. If you're a base jumper, if you jump off a cliff with a parachute on your back, you are most definitely a base jumper. You've gone up there to the top of that mountain or wherever with the express intent of partaking in the sport of base jumping. Yeah, but somebody falls off a bridge, just falls off a bridge. You wouldn't say, it's a base jumping death. Okay, but unfortunately with freediving, we get that all the time. So there's people who are untrained who just happen to be swimming around, snorkeling, swim underwater, and get into trouble, and it's classed as a freediving death. They're not freedivers. They are they're not going out to practice the sport of freediving. And quite a lot of the sensationalist tabloids, press, and kind of will lump those accidents in with actual freediving, and it's not. And in fact, going one step further, personally, I wouldn't include spearfishing in those accidents, in the freediving accidents, because they're not for the freediving. They're there for the fishing, and it's like abseilers. If somebody kind of if there's an accident abseiling and it was classed as a climbing accident, well, I think the climbers would be a bit upset because yes, it's in the same location using similar equipment, but somebody who's abseiling off a cliff is going there for a completely different reason to somebody who's going to trying to climb. Yeah, that's my analogy anyway. So that's my personal kind of feeling that spearfishing accidents, people are there for a different reason. But that's not why I'm here tonight. I really want to go through the actual some facts for you. Okay, so what people say, many people, over the 20 years I've been teaching this, say, I can't go freediving because of sharks. Okay, so shark attacks are a possibility, okay? In the same way as being hit on the head by a coconut is a possibility, okay? But nobody goes on a beach wearing a hard hat thinking, I'm gonna, or I'm not going on a beach because I might get hit on the head with a coconut, okay? But there's around the world, so out of the millions and millions of people who go in the sea, whether they're surfing, swimming, diving, whatever, there's about 10 deaths a year due to sharks. Okay, bear in mind there's 150 deaths every year from being hit on the head by a coconut, which it's quite a lot considering if you go down to Brighton you can go swimming in the sea, okay, but you're not likely to be hit on the head with a coconut. So the likelihood of a shark attack is very remote. And even step further than that, freedivers and scuba divers are very... I couldn't find... I looked into it and I couldn't find a single fatality within freedivers due to sharks. Okay, there have been a couple of shark attacks, okay, with freedivers. Again, they weren't freedivers that I found. They were spearfishermen. Okay, and people say, well, why are you separating spearfishermen from freedivers? Because spearfishermen tend to have a dead, bleeding fish very close to them, and some of them have them, like in some cases, attached to their belt. Okay, well, if you're going to go into waters where there's sharks and have a bleeding, either dead or near dead fish attached to your belt, there's a likelihood of a shark attack. Okay, shark attack, a bite. Okay, but again, not fatality most of the time, very, very rarely. Why is this? So I want to tell you why we don't, there's not many shark attacks on freedivers or scuba divers. And that's because when we're underwater diving, we are aware of what's around us. We're looking around us. Okay? And if we see a shark, if it's a big shark, 99.9% of the time, people are just going to kind of, oh, there's a big shark, I'm going to get out. Okay, and the shark's just turned up, you're going to get out of the water. Okay, and even if you're not going to get out of the water, you're going to be in there. Your awareness of that shark is like 100%. You are watching that shark, and if he looks angry, you're going to get out. Okay? And people say, how do you know whether they're angry? That's the same way as if you go in a garden, there's a dog there. You know whether the dog's angry. You know whether that dog wants you in that garden or not. Okay, same way with a shark. You know. Okay. Whereas if you're swimming, the shark underneath you looks at you, says, "What are you doing in my world? What are you doing around here? This is my patch," and you don't see it. So the swimmer won't get out because the swimmer won't know the shark's there. And then the shark gets angry, and the swimmer still doesn't know the shark's angry. Unlike freedivers, scuba divers, you see the shark and you're watching it because you want to watch it because they're beautiful creatures. And if it gets angry, you're like, ah. Same way as if a seal gets a bit kind of agitated, you're going to get out of there. Okay? But swimmers don't see this. So this is why the surface sports, kind of take up most of the shark attacks. But bear in mind, out of the millions and literally millions of people who go in the sea every year around the world, 10 fatalities. Okay, and I haven't found a single one of a freediver. So let's put that myth to rest. So when somebody says, I wouldn't go freediving, there's sharks, you can say, nah. Okay. The next one is, I've got listed down, is boats. Now, this is actually a true kind of thing. They are quite dangerous. I mean, very dangerous. But if you're diving with a buoy, which you should be if you're in open water, or if you're in a no boat zone, it's not going to be an issue. Yes, there's always going to be kind of accidents, and if you weren't in that location, you're going to reduce the possibility of the accident. But realistically, if you're actually freediving properly with the safety procedures, boats are not really going to be a big deal. Okay, they're going to be a big deal if they come near you, but you've got to be aware of them, you've got to avoid them, and that's it. You avoid them, so you avoid those situations. And talking about that, moving forward, the next thing is safety procedures. Now, freediving is not dangerous if you follow the safety procedures, and the safety procedures are very, very safe. Very, very simple. Like diving with a buoy. Okay. Now, I've heard of freedivers being hit by boats, even with a buoy. Okay, but they're on the surface. They're not even doing the freediving. Okay, but it's unlikely. So, famous incidents of freediving accidents have been, lanyards not being used, or air tanks not being full, or the big one is no buddy. Okay, now these are safety systems which are put in place to keep you safe. If you abide by the safety systems, you're going to reduce the likelihood of accidents by a vast quantity. Okay, so freediving is not dangerous if you follow the safety procedures, and basically never dive alone, never dive beyond your relaxation limits. You're pretty good to go. Okay, using the safety equipment as well, but they're the main two. Okay, so what else have I got down here? Oh yes. So I was I watched a video a while back, and they said where was the list? What did they say? I wrote it down. It was fantastic. So they quoted freediving as a sport that literally drains you of your life-sustaining oxygen, taking you to the brink of existence. Yeah, that's what this video's against, because Struth, the video paused for a second. Oh, so it's back on. Okay, so and they talked about nitrogen narcosis. Okay, which is again a possibility. It is a possibility. And people quote it to you, oh yeah, but what about nitrogen narcosis? I heard of a guy who did this, or a friend of mine knew a guy who had nitrogen narcosis. Yes, nitrogen narcosis is a thing. Yes, it affects freedivers. No, it doesn't affect them very often. We're talking when you go deeper than 30 meters, it starts to become a factor, and you've got to stay there for a reasonable amount of time. So if you imagine scuba diving, there's a lot of people who are qualified to go to 30 meters, and a lot more people that aren't qualified but are happy to go to 30 meters, and they will stay there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, okay, 5 minutes. Freedivers aren't going to stay that deep for that long. Okay? And I picked 30 meters for a specific reason. We take a lungful of air, which is 8% nitrogen for sake of argument. We go down to 10 meters, our lungs are half. Go down to 30 meters, our lungs are quarter. So the amount of nitrogen that we've got available for us to go into the blood is a quarter of what you would have if you were scuba diving. So scuba divers go to that depth and stay there for some time and have vastly more nitrogen, available to go into the bloods to affect them through nitrogen narcosis. Okay. So yes, it does affect freedivers. It's not going to affect you that much. And more than that, you get used to it. So the likelihood of a freediver who's never dived before, dived shallow, and then suddenly goes super deep, past 30 meters, 50, 60 meters, if they did do that, they would have nitrogen narcosis because they're not used to it. And they're going to get, and it's going to be dangerous. But it's not going to happen. It just doesn't happen. Because freedivers go a little way and a little bit deeper and a little bit getting used to it. Whereas in scuba, it is much, much easier for somebody. I'm not saying they should. I'm not saying, like they're qualified to do it. But it's much, much easier for somebody to do some shallow dives and then say, there's a wreck over there, 50 meters, 40 meters, 30 meters. And then just do that. They don't have to change anything to be able to do it. They should change some stuff. Whereas freedivers, the likelihood of you getting nitrogen narcosis to a point where it's dangerous, unlikely. Decompression sickness, the bends. Again, people always go, oh man, aren't you worried about the bends? Because when you go scuba diving, the bends is an issue. When you go freediving, it's unlikely. Okay, so a friend of mine, Fred Boyle, was officially the first freediver to get bent. Officially the first freediver to get bent. Okay, and you say, well, Marcus, you just told me that it's really unlikely that you can get bent or get the bends, decompression sickness, all the same thing. By freediving, it's really unlikely. And then you say, you've got a friend who got bent freediving. But the reason that Fred Boyle was the first person ever who was in a decompression chamber or a recompression chamber full of water, he held his breath, they compressed him, so effectively made him do a 30-meter dive, or maybe it would have been deeper, maybe a 50-meter dive, and then uncompressed him. He didn't do anything. He didn't move. He just held his breath for a short amount of time, a couple of minutes. And then they did it again. And then they did it again. And then they did it again. And they've tested him all the time, and they found after something like 4 or 5 dives to 50 meters, say, he had signs of the bends. He didn't feel any like the pain that you associate with the bends, but you can see in the whites of eyes, apparently, that's how you test, you can see micro bubbles appearing in the blood. All right? So he was officially the first freediver to get bent, but he did it in a laboratory, doing dives which were physically impossible outside the laboratory. Okay, maybe not physically impossible, but physically unlikely, because to do a dive to some sort of depth, 40, 50 meters, takes up a lot of energy, even if you're using a sled. And then you come up, minimum rest, go in again, come up, minimum rest, go in again. It's just not going to happen. Okay. And yes, there have been some freedivers who have done some extreme dives, repeat dives, outside the boundaries of what most people would consider safe, but actually outside the bounds of what most people are physically capable of doing, and they did have the bends. But it's insanely unlikely. Okay, so decompression sickness, not a danger for freedivers. Yes, some, but those people who are doing those crazy deep depths, crazy long dives, crazy repeat dives know what they're doing. That's up to them. Most freedivers, no problem. Somebody else quoted to me oxygen toxicity. It was actually, it wasn't mentioned to me, it was on a video about freediving dangers, oxygen toxicity. Now, I was going to put this in my video a few weeks ago about 5 things that were taught to you in courses that aren't true, because I have seen oxygen toxicity being taught on freediving courses. But it's not true. When I say not true, physics states it is possible, but it's unlikely. And again, let's go back to that scuba analysis. So if you go down to 10 meters and you're breathing pure O2, okay, if you look at the physics, and maybe I'll do a whole video on this, I don't know, the actual maths behind it. If you look at it up, they talk about the partial pressure of oxygen in your lungs being poisonous, and therefore you get oxygen toxicity. But this is presuming that you're going to breathe oxygen at that level, because partial pressures, the very measurement partial pressures, only is valid with gases, and it's not poisonous when it's in your lungs. It's poisonous when it's in your blood, and there's no such thing as partial pressure in solution. It just doesn't happen. It can't. Physics doesn't work that way. So when they calculate at what depth oxygen becomes toxic, they use partial pressures because they're presuming somebody is diving, breathing the oxygen, okay, repeatedly. Whereas freedivers are going to go down. They may go through the barrier of where oxygen toxicity is an issue, but then they're going to come straight back out again. Okay? And oxygen toxicity doesn't just kind of nothing, death. Okay, nothing. There's some shakes, some spasms, some other things happen, and so you got to be there for a while. That's what I'm saying. Now, when I was working with Herbert, we did the 214 meters no limits dive in 2007, and I calculated where I thought oxygen toxicity would actually be an issue. And then I recalculated again when I started on a thing called Project 300, where we were working out the logistics of getting a freediver to 300 meters. We designed the sled, so we got around the mechanics of it, we got around the price and the logistics of it, and then I worked through the physiology of it and whether it was whether it was possible. And we came up with the depth at the time, using the calculations that we had for oxygen toxicity, that it would play a part at about 240 to 250 meters. We worked out that oxygen toxicity would actually become a factor. Okay. Now, being as the world record is still at 214 meters, I can pretty much categorically say, whoever you are watching this video, oxygen toxicity is not going to be an issue for you. Okay. Andreas, if you're watching, maybe you should be considering it. But oxygen toxicity, yes, technically there is a point where breathing normal air, oxygen can become toxic, but it's not going to happen to a freediver. Okay. Whew. Okay. So that's why that's not dangerous. All right. I think, is there any questions coming up? because I think I pretty much covered everything I wanted to. Can I just say, I'd like just to mention, just because I've just spotted EY Sailing coming on. It's there. And we're diving with EY Sailing in 2021. We've got some trips planned around the Ionian Islands. So if you fancy coming on a liverboard, a yacht trip around the Ionian Islands, come freediving, you are welcome to join us. So message us, and we can tell you all that information. Okay, so to cut a long story short, that's pretty much it. That's why freediving is not dangerous, because if they've got safety systems in place, okay, sharks are not an issue, oxygen toxicity is not an issue, the bends is not an issue, level of experience can be an issue, but again, most times you're building up that experience as you go. It's unlikely that somebody's just going to go out one day and just dive super deep, okay, because they've got to build up the skills to get there. So my rounding of it is, be careful of the true dangers of freediving, and I can pretty much sum that up in one word. Anybody any guesses? Yeah, you guessed it. So that is what's going to drive you to go further than you should. Your awareness comes out from yourself to the depth you want to go to, the depth that you want on that computer, so you can tell the people down the pub or show off, I've done this depth. Okay, that's when your awareness goes out there, or even catching that big fish if you're spearfishing, or or if for taking photographs, just a couple of seconds long. I just need this shot. It's that drive to go further than you should. That's the real danger of freediving, and there are ways to control that. Okay, and again, no prizes for anybody who can guess how you control it. Honesty and awareness. Oh yeah. So thank you very much for another live stream. And will there be a live stream next week? I don't know. It's just after Christmas. I doubt there will be. But you never know. If I've had too many mince pies, I may just I may be kind of bored and do a live stream. I'm not. There's no. I've just been told by the boss that there's no live stream next week. So we'll see you in.
Merry Christmas!
See you in the new year. Have a good Christmas. Whatever Christmas you are having or planning on having, have a good one. Have a safe one. And we'll see you on New Year's Day if you can make it. If not, I don't know. Send us a picture of you diving on New Year's Day wherever you are. So happy Christmas.